Hey, welcome everybody to our first Get Real. Today we're going to talk about the metaverse and what it means for the XR business. Really quick, I'm Ed Haravon, along with Rob Merrilees, the two co-founders for Get Real. We're super excited to have Michael Potts, the CEO and founder of M2 Studio down in Dallas, to join us. Michael, tons of talk about the metaverse lately. We'll get to what Mark Zuckerberg had to say a few days ago. But actually, I'm not going to give you credit for coining the term, but I will say about a month ago, you sent us an email saying, hey guys, I'm seeing a lot to do around this whole idea of branding things as the metaverse and people referring to their businesses involved in the metaverse. And so I'd love to give you a little bit of a chance to explain kind of what you were seeing and how you think it fits into the industry right now.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on. I've heard of the metaverse before, obviously with the Ready Player One, and saw some books that had some topics about it, Snow Crash, and read some other books, and I was aware of the concept. But all of a sudden, around late spring, early summer, I just started seeing pop up more and more in various feeds and articles, and it just became more and more common. And then I started hearing customers talk about it. And they wanted to be the metaverse of this, and the metaverse of chewing gum, and the metaverse of hair care products. And I was like, wait a minute, metaverse is what we call jump the shark, right? Like it's become so common that we're hearing it left and right. And I changed my title on LinkedIn from holographic architect to metaverse architect, thinking that sounded appropriate. And it is the topic that I see nowadays 5 times, 10 times a day.
What would your definition of the metaverse be? Okay, we've identified it as a buzzword within the industry, but like when you think about it, like put some terms to it, and I'll let Rob weigh in after that.
Yeah, I've been on a few podcasts lately and had these conversations, and I've been kind of reading up on what different experts think the metaverse is. And truthfully, you get a different answer every time you talk to someone. So this person thinks it's that, and some people are much more broad about it. Some people are much more, dialed in, and it just means exactly a certain thing. Obviously the term's getting a lot of use, and I still like the movie, the book and the movie Ready Player One. And I think that the way that they describe the metaverse is what I hope we see someday. And I will say this, I am starting to see signs that we are going to have something along those lines. Now, I think it's years and years away, but what's the sign that I'm seeing is where you've got a portal from one platform to another. And I'm noticing that more and more frequently now, where one platform leads to another. So the metaverse as a whole might be like the next internet, right? But the only way that's going to really work is if all these sort of subgroups or kingdoms or fiefdoms connect together. And once they start to do that, you'll be able to jump from this group, this chat group, this use case, this type of platform to that platform. And so I think that what we're eventually going to have, what the metaverse to me is a series of connected VR, AR experience platforms that you can go from environment to environment, from platform to platform, and use case to use case. And one metaverse might be for business, and one metaverse might be for games, and one metaverse might be for entertainment, and some are for sports, and some are for gambling, and some are for other nefarious purposes. But you're going to have all these different connected networks.
Rob.
Yeah, I'll jump in on that piece. So I think Michael's dead on about this ability to take that which we own, that which we buy, that which we rent, and take it from one space to another space, but not just digitally to digitally, but also physical to digital and back again. So I could have, a specific shirt that's at my home, but then I might also have that same or a different shirt that connotes, like, it's not about physical comfort, but it might be about brand, it might be about fashion, it might be about some image I'm trying to portray. And I have a version of that, or I have versions of that in the digital world. And maybe there's some sort of connotation of, I actually don't just own that in the digital world, or don't just wear it in the digital world, I actually own it in the real world. That may have cachet. I may hop on a plane in the real world wearing whatever shirt I'm wearing and take it to a different physical location. I can do that today, right? But to Michael's point, that ability to have something that I own digitally and move from one platform, one city, to another city, one space to another space, across platform, across vendor product, that's probably, that convergence is probably where it's all going to go. And those that figure it out in turn, and of course there's a protocol piece, and there's a lot of technical heavy lifting to do in order to accomplish that. Those will be more successful than those who only figure out how to have an item in a unique space and not be able to take it to the other places that one wants to visit, because when one goes and visits there, they want to make sure that the new people that they're associating with know that they own whatever it is, but they can't. So it's the company that's actually those that are able to figure out how to transcend all of these spaces physically, digitally, go back and forth. Those will be the winners, I think.
I think it's pretty intriguing to look just in the past few weeks at a couple examples. Like, everyone always, when they're talking about metaverse, they've identified things like Roblox, Fortnite as being really early innovators. They've created these live experiences. They've kind of first started to capitalize on this convergence between physical world, digital world. In many cases, they've now focused in a little bit of crypto, which is a whole different topic we can talk to a second. But they've got payment structures involved in them, or soon will have things like Robux, etc. But like, there's people out there actually living it. It's no longer kind of conceptual. It's no longer something that's living in a science fiction movie or book. You've got, just in this last week, Bruno Larval announcing that he's going to spend 365 days in the metaverse, and who knows what he's going to find. It's been only day 8. I've been following it on Twitter, but people committing to see, like, what's this all about? How can I live? How can I do business? How can I interact with the rest of my life while maintaining a kind of constant digital presence? You've got people saying, like, you've got Richard Scoble saying that Tesla is the true metaverse company. When you're talking about convergence of physical world, cars, AI, anything that comes on digital, certainly there's a crypto element there too. Not something historically that I've thought of in terms of the VR community, but like, interesting to think about. If you're talking about this big convergence of technologies, certainly that's another way to think about how things are coming clean, and really kind of coming together. And then lastly, this week, just a few weeks ago, Facebook announcing not only that they want to be a metaverse company, according to Zuckerberg, and it's estimated that 70% of the people working for the company right now are working in this new metaverse division, or helping realize that. Like, people are putting real dollars, real efforts behind it, which is showing a first early step is Facebook Horizon. Surely it's maybe not true metaverse, but it's obviously their toe in the sand to help get that project rolling out to the public, and certainly that's going to spur on all this other innovation as well. So, like, the fact that people are actually using it, and there's actually some product coming out, and it's not just talk, makes me think it might have a little more legs than where people might normally see something that might be very trendy or flashy to talk about. I don't know. Michael, what do you think?
I would say that it's one of those topics that there's everything from absolute experts to those that are really just kind of speaking about it. And but it's hard to be a true expert in this field, because there's so many subdivisions to it. There's so many different ways in which you can slice up the metaverse. So you can get it to the point where anything that you can experience on the web is a metaverse. Or do you specify you have to be in VR, AR goggles? I mean, Bruno this morning was talking about, he thinks if you're on the web, it's cheating. And I mean, I guess you could call it that. And, that's one way to look at it. But there's a lot of different players, and there's so many different levels of like immersiveness, right? And so to the point where we finally get to where we're all in this, immersed VR, AR experience. I think we're a ways away from that. But between now and then, there are going to be these sort of like levels of more immersiveness, and the connections between the real world, like you said, Rob, which I think is really clever, about how, we're going to see a point when you go buy a shirt at a high fashion that it may very well come with a crypto NFT connected shirt or pair of pants or a bag from Coach. I mean, I think that's coming sooner than we think. I think we'll see that within a year or so, that a lot of the big brands may sell you a digital NFT asset that comes with it. And then you're right, your avatar, you spent $1,200 for that shirt or that bag or those pants, and you may want to make your avatar wear those pants because those were hard to get. But I also think that we're going to play in a world here where it's exciting, but here's what I think is going to happen. If you look at all the business application VR experience platforms out there, eventually I think it'll be distilled down to just a couple or one that will win that game. Same thing with the entertainment, like all the different apps and all the different solutions that are going to work for entertainment. I think they'll eventually be a winner or two. And I think you'll have that on a lot of fronts, because I think there's a lot of players in the game right now, and there won't be as many players in this space in 4 years or 5 years. And that it will come down to a handful of those companies, and they'll be acquired by those, or they'll acquire their competition. And if you just look at the Wild, which was the platform that we were using back in 2018, and they're great. They bought their bigger competitor because they had a better product and they were winning the customer. I think the customers preferred the Wild, and so they acquired their competitor, and they are now the leader in their space. And I'm not sure if anyone else is going to come along and challenge them for that space, but I think we'll see similar things playing out in the different metaverse sort of like corners, right? The entertainment corner, the sports corner, the art corner, the musicians corner. You're going to see all these different and some of these platforms are going to hold 2 or 3 or 4 positions, and eventually maybe they'll continue to hold those. But I think at some point, those who don't find that they're the winner will either have to bow out or join with somebody else.
I might take a different take on that, Michael. I see what you see in like along the evolution, and things get bigger, and certainly that's what happens in other business. It just strikes me now early on that it is. I read an article the other day on a blog by Doug Thompson, and he described it as being the metaverse now is chaotic. It's a homebrew club. It's a home knitting club. It's computer hacking back in the early days. Like, it is such a creator-driven space. There is literally no boundaries. There is no limit to what you could invent and what you be. It is, and the idea that it can, in many cases, like these metaverses or sub-metaverses as they sprout up, are creating their own currencies, digital tokens. Like, they're literally innovating at every aspect of what they're creating. And they're going to be interconnected. Like, there's going to be ways of taking value from one and spending it in another area. And so I just see it being so like beautifully chaotic, to kind of quote from the article. Whereas, ironically, against the backdrop of here's Facebook making a big claim at metaverse and trying to probably own it, and try, with everything they've, as I mentioned earlier, like putting their money where their mouth is in terms of going after the room. Consider that against the backdrop of, there's bills in Congress right now saying Facebook should be smaller. There's bills in Congress saying Facebook should be broken up. There's huge ethical questions around what are the new rules in, if you've got a convergence of physical world, augmented reality, virtual reality, who sets those rules? Certainly no one's figured that out yet. And to that token, I think it's going to be a long time before people do. But this whole idea of like who gets to set the terms of it, I think is so undecided that it'll keep someone from rolling it up for a long time, just because the nature of how it's kind of just been a grassroots effort since the start. Said differently, who gets to augment reality? Who gets to walk down the street, take recent events. There's the Capitol building, who gets to take that and say, well, that's where all the laws of the United States are made, or that's where my senator from Illinois goes to serve, or that was the site of like a glorious revolution on January 6th. Anybody can have, and that's just 3 of 100 different views. What is the right data and reality that can be overlaid around something that's so public? I think it's interesting to think about.
I'll jump in on like the current state of the VR world, current state, the current metaverse. In some ways, maybe if it's chaotic, maybe it's most like what AOL, Prodigy, and CompuServe were like in the 90s, which is completely scattered in terms of what the uses were. But what's also interesting to note is that the leaders of that day, AOL got bought by Time Warner. Tell me what happened to Prodigy. Tell me what happened to CompuServe. Those that are the leaders at the early stages are not necessarily the winners down the road. That said, the capital advantages that certain players have today would be the equivalent of like whatever IBM was, right? And even IBM lost its way. IBM didn't end up dominating any of that space, and ended up being years behind. Speaking of IBM, they have. I kind of think when the winners start to emerge will be when the consumers. We're so far from full adoption, from anything close to adoption. This is the metaphor of the first inning. Even though VR has been around for 20 some years, and there's been people that have been burned many times in the hype cycle, thinking that this is it. This is when spatial computing, VR, AR, the metaverse is about to take off. But when did it take off? It took off when we got home. When did computing productivity really take off? It took off when there was adoption because of the personal computer, and it wasn't just the Fortune 500 companies and then the 1,000 companies and then all the businesses that had access to the productivity gains that could come from using a computer. When companies started making PCs and Macs and so forth for the home, that's when, if you look back, that's really when technology really started to burgeon. And we're nowhere near that. Now we're a lot closer today than we were a year and a half ago, when we didn't have or even a year ago, when we didn't have a $299 high quality device as we do now from Facebook. The metaverse is gaining steam, I think, right now, because Facebook is pouring a ton of money, or pouring a ton of money into the branding, into the terminology. Zuckerberg, very purposeful. The term's been around. Obviously, they've decided to put their money on that vision as being and try to attach all of it to that word. And I looked up in Google Trends earlier today about how, and Michael's dead on when he said it spiked in the spring, and then again more recently. I also looked up future of work, which was a phrase that was beginning to catch some steam. And sure enough, in the same period recently when Metaverse has taken off, future of work is starting to go down. Well, Facebook, of course, doesn't just care about the workplace, even though Horizon Workrooms or Workroom Horizons has obviously for the workplace, they care about the consumer. And when Apple comes out, whenever that is, with whatever iterations of hardware they decide they want to ultimately launch, that's going to be the equivalent, I think, and in tandem with clearly with Facebook's own evolution, whether it's of glasses, Aria glasses, or improved, Quest headsets or whatever. That's the equivalent of the PC coming into the house. And when people have that, that's when ideas really, then they cross germinate, because people start doing stuff at home, and then they start bringing those ideas of productivity into the workplace, and people in the workplace who are using the devices already start, getting them for their home. And that's really when the demand curve, I think, will take that hockey stick up move, increase, and that will ultimately define, metaverse is just a label, but what we're living, what we will be living will be, that'll be the reality that'll be the metaverse.
Michael, you get the last word today. And before doing so, I'll say any world where I can get an NFT on any of the Michael Potts shirt collection, I want to be a part of it. So I'll give you the last word on the metaverse today, and we'll wrap it up.
First, before I take the last word, I want to give a plug to something that I hope you guys will be involved with. Our friend Stephen Halziger from Northern Illinois University and I are planning a symposium conference next spring on the metaverse and on the concepts we're talking about here, which that notion of, let's have conversations about what it should be, what it could be. Let's talk about the ethics, the morality. Let's talk about the legal issues that are going to be coming around. Let's have a wholehearted conversation about a lot of different elements, and not just about the business side of things, but he wants to incorporate, plenty of academics. So we plan to have an event that in the spring. I'd show you the website, but it's still too early. But that's going to be centered around the whole concept and the conversation about the metaverse, and try to think about, like, what if you had a conversation before the internet really became something? What if I probably did, right? But like, would you want to go to those conversations and listen to experts and have those discussions with them about where things are headed, but also what we should try to plan for and how we should try to make it better and how we should try to make it work for everyone? So a plug for the I think the conference is going to be called Virtual Frontiers. And I'll just say this, and I'll finish on this point. What I see, and of course, I'm only getting one part of the picture, because I'm really obviously pretty closely connected to Spatial, and those guys give us a lot of work, and we give them a lot of freebies, and it's a good relationship between the two of us. And although we work with other platforms, we're seeing a lot of our interactions with the metaverse as through the prism of Spatial, and a little bit through Altspace, but a lot through Spatial. And what I see, and what we've been on the receiving end is conversations with corporations, government entities, and some public sector, educational facilities, but from across a wide spectrum of different types of businesses and across the world, right? Like, that's the challenge, right? Is I'm getting calls at 6 a.m. from Norway and at 4 a.m. from Beijing, because it's across the entire planet. And I would almost say I have an easier time making a deal with someone in England than I do in Dallas, right? Because in Dallas, the real estate is hot and everyone's just all on that, and it's hard to explain, no, put this on your head. But I'm dealing with someone overseas, or I'm dealing with someone in another country, and they already are more bought into the concept. But the different types of industries, and I could list them off, but just about every single one, there's at least a few players in each one of these that wants to be to hold either a lead status, or wants to spend enough energy, money, and time to really fully investigate it and try to be informed and aware. And I think some of these companies are huge corporations, and obviously they wouldn't be here and we wouldn't be spending time in this if they didn't believe there was at least some value to it. So I don't think there's a question. This is coming, and it's going to touch our lives in a lot of different ways, from a lot of different industries and a lot of different organizations. So I couldn't give a prediction on time, although in my, 5 years ago, I was telling businesses, like, in 5 or 6 years, be ready, because you're going to have a virtual reality website where people are going to come and they're going to meet with you and interact with you, and they're going to use it for a portal to your company. And I think you guys are proof that that's already the case. Like, businesses are already doing that. So this is the future. And I would say, you go out 3 or 4 more years and you're going to see this across nearly every single industry, and it's going to be deep, and it's going to have fingers in so many different aspects of our lives.
Well, we could probably talk about this for 2-3 hours. News, 10 new metaverse topics just came up on Twitter as we were speaking. So we'll break here. Michael, thanks for joining us for the Get Real today. And if you guys liked what you saw, we'll be doing these monthly on topics that are affecting the industry. And so follow us on YouTube and stay in touch as we hopefully bring some good insight to some of these topics as we move forward. So thanks a lot, and we'll end it here.